Okay. I'm coming to you on March 9th. Um, this is my nightly take on the situation in Ukraine. And I like to shout out to my very good friends who encouraged me to keep doing this talk. I thought about doing it tomorrow night, but they encouraged me to post this tonight. So you know who you are. Thank you very much. I appreciate the kind comments. Um, Again, the battlefield is, although static, is it's basically bad news for the Russians. The northern areas, even the northeast and northwest thrusts into against Kiev, have stalled. They are being destroyed. I saw an intelligence report today that verifies and just verifies. You have to understand what that means. They're able to confirm 120 tanks destroyed, 800 Russian military vehicles destroyed, and this is just from open sources. I do believe that the Russian losses are much heavier. I would estimate maybe 1,000 military vehicles and about 300 tanks, Russian tanks destroyed. This is what happens when you are facing a determined defensive force with enough firepower, javelins, stingers, and so on, that they can stand their ground. Again, as I said before, 200,000 Russian invaders against a determined force was bound to fail, and I think it will. So that the military situation in the north is going very, very badly for the Russians. And even in the south, I cannot say how much I admire the bravery of Ukrainian forces at Mariupol and the southern areas. While you may see maps that show Russian advances, these advances do not completely pacify the areas that they're on, and they allow for Ukrainian forces to move behind the lines to flank the thrusts and to cause significant damage to the Russian forces. So I don't think that they will be able to overwhelm the Ukrainians anytime soon. And the longer this goes on, the more likely it is for the Russians to fail in their overall military objectives. Okay, leaving that, I'd like to talk a little bit about the history of the Ukraine. Putin has claimed that that this is a special military operation, a kind of term that hides the true nature of his intent, but nonetheless, he has adopted that, and he's passed special legislation, which will result in a 15-year prison term for any Russian who actually just calls this operation a war, which it actually is, on the Ukrainians. But just taking that into everything that Putin has said kind of misleads and denies the truth. That is, he has said that he is carrying out the special military operation because he wants to denazify the Ukrainian government. While he is the Nazi, he is acting in ways that parallel Hitler's thrust into Russia in 1941, and also deal with a kind of denial of Russian-Ukrainian history. He has said that the Ukrainians are Russian by nature. They may be somewhat related in terms of linguistics, in terms of culture, although Western Ukraine, as I've said before, is very different from the East and very different from Russia. They tend to be closer to the poles. They speak a dialect of Ukrainian that is closer to Polish, not Russian at all. And they are Roman Catholic, not Russian Orthodox, which is a kind of very, very important distinction. But nonetheless, they also have a long history with Russia. And their history has often been very sad. In fact, in 1932, 1933, you had Stalin's attempt to starve Ukrainian peasants into submission, and this program killed about 4 million Ukrainians. These are the grandparents of the people who are fighting now. And they understand what happened in 1932 and 33, and they don't want to go back to Russia. In fact, they were willing to fight for the Germans. At least some elements of the Ukrainians were willing to fight for the Germans until they found out that the Germans were determined to destroy all Slavic peoples. And then they put up a determined defense against the German thrusts into Russia. And Stalin himself had to change tact from a kind of Marxist-Leninist ideologue war to one that was a patriotic war, a war to save the motherland. Nonetheless, the Ukrainians have a name for Stalin's attempt to destroy them, and it's the Holodomor. The Holodomor is the equivalent of the Holocaust. And it talks about the Ukrainian situation in 1932 and 1933, when 4 million Ukrainians were starved to death by the Kremlin and Stalin. And they remember that. These are, as I said, the grandchildren or the great-grandchildren of that generation, and they have decided that they will fight to the death to prevent Russia from retaking control of the Ukraine. This is quite important, and it should not be minimized in our estimation of the determination that the Ukrainians have demonstrated in the face of superior forces. Nonetheless, I think that they will be effective, and they will defeat the Russians. I also think that this is the beginning of Putin's long goodbye. Putin will never get back from this. He is seen as an international pariah. He is isolated. Even China, I think, will move to mediate this situation in ways that will not prove completely satisfactory to Putin. Already, Putin has given up on the Russians have given up on their demands of regime change. That is, they will accept the Zelensky government, although they are still demanding territorial concessions in the Donbass and a kind of constitutional amendment that will determine or will kind of crystallize Ukraine's neutrality. This is not going anywhere. Ukraine knows that. They basically signed on to the Budapest Convention or the Budapest Memorandum of 1994 when they gave up their nuclear weapons in exchange for a U.S.-Russian guarantee that Ukraine's territorial integrity would be guaranteed. And we know how that's gone. Putin chose to ignore the Budapest Memorandum and invade the territorial, attempt against the territorial integrity of Ukraine in 2014 in the Crimea and then in the Donbass region. So they violated the Budapest Convention of 1994, and which is a problem for the international community, because how many more nations will give up their nuclear capabilities in exchange for a guarantee, an international guarantee or multilateral guarantee? I don't think many will. And Ukraine may think today that that was a mistake. Nonetheless, I think that Ukraine will end Putin's territorial ambitions and will bring about his demise. It may not be today, but I think 1 year from now, Putin will not be in power in Moscow. There will be a different government, and we'll see in a year whether I'm right or wrong. Okay, good night.